Well, welcome to another teaching from the Grove Counseling Ministry. I just wanted to take a few minutes and talk about a couple things that have been on my heart. And to start, I was wondering if you've ever had a day like this. So it was early in the morning. As soon as I got out of bed, I was already late. So I was rushing and I was throwing on my clothes and getting ready for my day and rushing out the door. I'm in my car, groggy, sleepy, but running late and looking down, shouldn't have done it. All of a sudden, slam, I hit something. And all of a sudden my mind went, what did I hit? What's going on? Why is this happening? I hit a giant pile of rocks. I think sometime that happens in our lives. We're rushing, we're going, we're maybe a little bit, our mind isn't where it needs to be. Maybe even our eyes aren't where they need to be. And then something just slams into us and we lose a grip of what's going on in our life for a second. This is common. This is something we all go through. Our perspective sometimes can get skewed just by the busyness of life. And so I've been inspired recently in some of my Bible study. I just want to share just 3 simple words with us tonight. And the first word is slow. Sometimes we just need to slow down. We live in a pace, in a culture of fast. You're never fast enough. In fact, going fast usually means you're already behind or you're already late or you're already not at the speed you need to be. And if we could just embrace the slow moments in our day, in our week, in our walks with the Lord, maybe, just maybe we would get more from those moments that are not as fast. Our fast-paced world tells us to go, 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 but sometimes God tells us to slow. I'm a little embarrassed that I needed a reminder of this to slow down so close to the year 2020. This pandemic, I felt the first few months of it, I got nothing but slow handed to me. Everything was different. My meetings were now on my couch on Zoom. Right? I couldn't work in my office, so I would just stroll out of bed and go to the other room. And that was our day. And I remember thinking, as horrible as all of this is the good part of it. I get to slow down. But here we are, a little over a year later, and I'm needing this reminder again. Things seem to be somewhat back to normal. I'm going fast again. I'm always rushing. Now, don't hear me wrong. Fast isn't bad. Sometimes we need to be on the ball. Sometimes we need to be prompt, and that's okay. But I think we also need to embrace the slow. I want to just read a passage, and I want to set the story. Jesus is going over to his friend's house for a night, for a teaching, for a meal, and his friend Lazarus has 2 sisters, Mary and Martha. Martha is busy doing all the tasks, rushing around, doing the dishes, making the meal, getting everything ready, whereas Mary is going slow. And she's just sitting at Jesus' feet, not helping, just being with Jesus. And here's what we find in Luke chapter 10, verses 38 to 42. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister named Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken from her." I relate hard to Martha here. I've been in Martha's shoes, being the one buzzing around, getting everything done, feeling like I have an endless list on my to-do list, distracted. And it wasn't that Martha was doing anything wrong. It wasn't really about her actions. It was about where her mind was at. The to-do list is not bad, but forgetting to be present is. It was allowing these tasks to be more important than the actual lesson that was being taught here. That's where Martha went askew. And then Jesus said, Martha, you're worrying about many things, but really only one thing is important. I don't know if you remember the movie City Slickers, but Curly in City Slickers always said there's one thing, and you got to figure out what that one thing is. That's what Jesus said here. There's one thing. And that one thing is to be present, is to lean in, is to slow down and listen. And I think sometimes we can't listen because our to-do list is too loud. And that can be distracting. The one thing is the slow. The one thing is the moment of surrender, the moment of focus and dependency on God, not our to-do list. That was the one thing that Mary had chosen. It was faith. It was being a human being and not just a human doing. And that is where I often get off, is I'm just about doing and not always about being. Our second word is still. And for still, I think of Elijah. Now, here's what happened with Elijah. He had just come off of a literal mountaintop experience. He was on the top of Mount Carmel having the showdown with the prophets of Baal. They said their gods were better. Elijah said our God was better. And Elijah's God, our God, showed up. He embarrassed the prophets of Baal. He wrecked them. But then shortly after that, the evil Queen Jezebel wanted Elijah dead. So Elijah went from on top of a mountain of God showing up in this victory to running for his life to another mountain, Mount Horeb, hiding in a cave, hoping not to lose his life. Isn't that interesting how quickly life can shift? You can go from one mountain, the mountain of victory, to the mountain of fear in a heartbeat. And that's where Elijah was living. He was scared, he was hiding, and he was in this cave hoping that this evil queen wouldn't find him. And 1 Kings 19, 11 through 13 picks up the action. The Lord said, "Go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." And then a great, powerful wind tore the mountain apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face and he went out and he stood at the mouth of the cave. So God's presence didn't come in the form of the wind or the tornado. He didn't come in the form of the earthquake or the fire. It was this gentle whisper. The whisper is easy to miss sometimes. You've got to listen for it. You have to lean in. You have to be still. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." Still equals peace. Still equals calm. Still equals free of the noise. Still equals pressing in. I sometimes wait for the whisper to barge in, like it's gonna catch me off guard and God's gonna tap me on the shoulder and turn around and whisper. That's not how that works. I have to listen for it. I have to slow the noise and be still and quit my moving and press in and slow my thoughts and still my spirit. And then God speaks. And then God inspires. And then he comforts and heals. Our third word tonight is simple. I think we live in a world of complex, complicated. How many times has someone asked you about your day or asked you about how you're feeling or how you're doing or how the relationship is going? And your answer is, it's complicated. It's complicated. Faith isn't. It's very simple. That's why Jesus reminds us to have faith like a child. Just believe and trust me with everything you've got. Simple is about not getting too caught up in the complications of a fallen world and not being so wrapped up in the complications that we forget to recover and heal. Colossians 3:1-2 says it this way: since then you have been raised with Christ, set your hearts on things above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. So really, being simple is about looking up, not just looking down. Don't get caught up in the undertow of a fallen world of pain and grief. Fix your eyes on the things above, not just earthly things. Earthly things bring pain and disappointment. Earthly things are fleeting, hollow, they never satisfy. Heavenly things, however, always satisfy and never leave us lacking. Trust God, know Him more, lean into Him for strength for each new day. That is the way, the simple way. Cast your cares on Him, for He cares for you. Simply live, striving to let God shine His light through your life. I have a pretty good mantra to help us live simply and not live complicated lives. It's called the Serenity Prayer, and many people have heard this. There's a short version that is common for many people. They know the first part, but the second part is the part that I think helps us live more simply. It says this: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Here's the longer part. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking as Jesus did the sinful world as it is and not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen. So one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as this thing we go through as a pathway to true peace in our lives, and taking Jesus' example of not trying to warp this world and this life into what we have it, but trusting that God has it, trusting that He will make all things right. And that has to come through surrendering and turning over the keys of our life and our will to God. And so the result of that is joy, true happiness, sometimes, right? But joy always. And then knowing there's an eternal happiness to come because of Jesus. Supremely happy with Him forever. Slow, still, simple. Thanks for joining us tonight.